Okay, welcome. So today we're going to be looking at the progression of the tallest structure in the world. So starting from the Great Pyramid of Giza, we're going to go through which structures, which buildings were considered the tallest structures in the world. And from there we will we'll look at how the design, the materials, and the purpose of these structures changed throughout the ages. So let's get rolling with that. All right. So this first one we've observed this. This is of course the Great Pyramid of Giza. Great Pyramid of Giza. I think that's also Khufu's pyramid, if I remember correctly. The height of this pyramid is 481 feet. And from around the time it was built, and it was built, around 2600 BCE, 2570 is the date I have here. It was the tallest structure in the world. Nothing rivaled it for over 3,000 years, almost 4,000 years. It was the tallest structure in the planet. And of course, it was made of stone, basically as a monument to a ruler, to the pharaoh, but also to the civilization in a certain sense as well. There were other similar structures that built out of stone, had a similar design in sort of how they piled up the stones and got them to last as the Great Pyramid before it, but really not designed for habitation at all. Not even really possible to inhabit. You could put use it as a tomb, but not really for much else. The plus side of building it out of stone is it's very enduring. It's a structure we still see today. So, and you could go there and visit it if you're able to, you were so inclined. The next two are only visible in drawing and in the form of a model. So this is Old St. Paul's Cathedral. I believe that the entire cathedral no longer exists. So Old St. Paul's, and this building, it topped the spire itself, and it took the spire to do that. It topped the Pyramid of Giza at 489 feet. Now this spire eventually it was the tallest for not quite 100 years until the next building we're going to look at was built. But this spire has collapsed. Let's see, what year did it collapse in? It collapsed in 1561. So it was completed in 1221, lasted a little over 300 years, and then it collapsed. That tended to happen with these spires. It's a little difficult to do really good maintenance and get them to last a long time. They're basically just made of wood. So, something goes wrong, maybe gets struck by lightning, it can eventually collapse, and oftentimes it would. So that was certainly true of this building and of the next one. Now, this cathedral is actually one I showed you a picture of when we were doing cathedrals. This is Lincoln Cathedral, but this is a model of Lincoln Cathedral. It's a model of it while the large spire was still on there, and that large spire went up to 524 feet. And while the cathedral is still there, that largest spire no longer is. That spire collapsed a little over 200 years after it was built. And this is kind of a recurring theme with the spires of cathedrals. And so After the spire collapsed in 1548, another cathedral spire was the tallest structure in the world, taller than the Pyramid of Giza. But no cathedral spire was ever built as tall as this one. And so this, even after it collapsed, it had been the tallest structure in the world until we come to something we see in America today, the Washington Monument. So that's what this guy is, the Washington Monument. And this one, much more similar to the pyramids monument than the cathedrals. It was designed to honor a leader, not really to be a tomb, but to sort of honor him and show the nation's appreciation for him. The height of the Washington Monument is 555 feet. So, this was done largely with stone, and it sort of gets to the crux of sort of the tallest structures you can make out of stone. And it's fairly minimalistic in terms of the ornament that's involved on it. It's really just there to, be kind of a tall structure. With the next structure that was built, that we enter the steel age, and we start seeing the kinds of structures that you can build with steel. And that, of course, brings us to the Eiffel Tower in France, in Paris. So the Eiffel Tower. And this, of course, as we can see, is completed in 1889, and it is just, this is where we start to see buildings just start to get a lot taller. The Washington Monument was a fair bit taller than the Pyramid of Giza, but, not excessively. This height, it's not quite double, but it's almost doubling the height of the Washington Monument at this point. So 934 feet. And the key here, the reason why it's able to do this is now a structure that's built almost entirely of steel. And though, steel is definitely quite heavy, it is so much stronger for how heavy it is than stone is, that you can just make these really tall, sturdy structures that would just not be possible with stone. And while this is still, this is, we would rightly consider this sort of a monument, doesn't have much use. It does sort of forecast what is going to be possible in the next wave of the tallest structures that we see first completed in the Chrysler Building in New York. And this is not only taller than so this is the Chrysler Building. I'll write that. It's not only taller than the Eiffel Tower, and the first building to top 1,000 feet. It's 1,046 feet. But it's also very functional. I mean, you can see, just from the size of this, like the width of it, that there are, and all the space involved. People are meant to go into this building and work in it. Probably have a pretty good view while they're doing it, but they're definitely meant to work in these buildings, and that is something we're going to see in all of these coming skyscrapers. The next one. This particular skyscraper is still standing. It had one of the longest runs as of tallest buildings as a skyscraper, but as it turns out, there are constantly new skyscrapers being built. This is the Empire State Building, and again, it's very functional. People are working in here, possibly living in here. Some skyscrapers, people live and sleep in. There are apartments in them as well. I don't know. I don't believe this was true of the Empire State Building, but it was 1,250 feet. So even a fair bit taller than the Chrysler Building. And now we're well up above double what was possible in the Washington Monument, which was built not even 50 years before this. So quite impressive what was possible by this point. And really, it's modern materials, particularly steel, that made this possible. Now, we jump to the 70s, and we have a new highest building. These were the Twin Towers in New York City. We call them the Twin Towers, or the World Trade Center complex. Twin Towers were a better name. You may know that these were the two most prominent targets of an attack on America in 2001, and they collapsed on September 11th, 2001, after they were crashed into by jets. But they were very, very impressive buildings, and though they were not the tallest buildings for very long, only really a couple of years, they were nevertheless the tallest for a couple of years there. I'm trying to find the exact. The height of the Twin Towers was 1,368 feet tall. So that is how tall those guys were. No longer there, unfortunately. This next one is this was the tallest building in the world when I was born and when I was a kid. It was called the Sears Tower. I believe it's now known as the Willis Tower. And was a bit higher than than even the World Trade Center. It was 1,450 feet tall. And I believe that is not counting these radio towers on the top of it. Most of the time when these structures were measured, they're just measuring to the top of the building. But it gets a fair bit taller than that if you count the radio towers. And we'll look at one of the structures that I'm not including here in the skyscrapers. Which was taller than all of these skyscrapers all the way back in the 60s. So kind of cool. I've always liked this. These two towers. These were built in Kuala Lumpur. It's in Malaysia. These are the Petronas Towers. Very cool set of two very tall skyscrapers with a little bridge in between the two. These were 1483. I think I might have missed my. Nope, I did. That was fine. They were both 1,483 feet tall. And they were in fact taller than the Sears Tower, the Willis Tower, as of 1998. This next building was able to keep the tallest skyscraper for a little bit. It's called Taipei 101 in the city of Taipei. And it was a fair bit taller than even the Petronas or the Willis Tower. It was 1,667 feet tall. So we can see that we're just getting these huge increases in the heights of buildings. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned yet, with the invention of steel, people it seems clear that you can kind of just keep on building the structures taller and taller. The steel is strong enough to take it. One of the interesting things, one of the problems becomes that when you make a structure this tall, you have wind blowing on it up here, and that actually becomes a more significant design challenge than holding all the weight does. Because basically, because the wind you wouldn't think it would be a big deal, but because the building's so tall, all the way down here, it's, this thing has gotta be able to support that sideways force without bending and having the whole thing collapse. So, that became the primary concern of these designs. Now this next one. This is actually a radio tower, an antenna, a TV broadcasting tower. It's called the KVLY TV Mast. TV Mast. And basically, it's like I say, it's just a broadcasting tower, and it was taller than when it was completed in the 60s. It was taller than any skyscraper, and was taller than most skyscrapers until the tallest skyscraper in the world was recently built in the last 15 years. But it was 2,063 feet high. Now, very different in function. than the skyscrapers. Basically, no one is really ever supposed to be in this. People can climb it to do maintenance on it, but basically it's just supposed to be sending out signals. And you can actually see that off to the side, so it's why I picked this angle, and you can see it all over the place. You've kind of got steel cables that are anchoring this thing up. And those are not there to, keep the weight up. It's to prevent it from, blowing over. So you've got these, you can see some, here and there and there and there, all the way. You've just got steel cables going in every which direction to just kind of provide this thing some lateral stability so it doesn't blow over. There's a very scary video of a guy doing maintenance on this. At least I found it very scary, of him just climbing up one of these very tall towers, these radio towers, and doing maintenance on it. But at last we come to the magnificent Burj Khalifa. And I did show a picture of this already, but it is just it's kind of interesting to see it compared to other skyscrapers, in comparison to the other skyscrapers and building right next to it. It's just so much larger. It's in the United Arab Emirates in the city of Dubai. But its height is 2,717 feet. So it even makes that TV mast, which was the highest, one of the tallest structures in the world for quite some time, it makes that thing look tiny. Now, to just kind of be clear, not only did you have, just this huge number of very tall buildings going up after the invention of steel, but it wasn't just for the purpose of making something tall or honoring a past leader or something like that. That you could argue that maybe something like the Burj Khalifa is, but really, these buildings served a purpose. You had a lot of people wanting to go, working for these different companies, or maybe a bunch of different companies, but in a relatively small location, and you could make this building, these buildings go up as opposed to building, laterally. And particularly in places like New York, this was very advantageous because space was at such a premium. So if you could build up as opposed to, building sideways, that was a big advantage. And that was one of the things that sort of ushered the skyscraper era in, combined with the fact that readily available steel made it possible. So that is there's a final comparison of all of the tallest buildings in the world as it progressed like that, and you can kind of see. I didn't show a picture of this TV mast. It was a little bit taller. It was in Poland, but it has unfortunately collapsed, so we don't see that one anymore. But a lot of these you can see were the tallest structure in the tallest structure in the world for quite a while. So that is it for this lecture. I hope you found it useful. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.